Hi, hello everyone. So welcome to my channel, and yeah, I know that it's been more than a month without any video uploads, but I'm unfortunately I'm very busy with many things, including work and many things, and also enjoying the last 4 days of Eid Mubarak festivities. Okay, I'm now going to bring you some nice mini course, and as you can see, this is introduction to DevOps. Mm, it is not like I'm going to discuss specific toolings or DevOps by any kinds of tooling specific. No, and I'll explain it to you later in detail. But first of all, welcome to my channel. This is Visual Studio Indonesia, and you are with Eriawan Kusumawardano. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night on wherever you are and whatever is your time zone. I'm glad that I can bring you this course because this course was also quite often asked by some of my friends in Indonesia, especially, and also some of my uh, colleague, especially previous colleague. And I promise you that although I'm going to use Azure DevOps, these courses is not specific to Azure DevOps actually. I'm using Azure DevOps, but you can also use other kinds of tool, such as any source control or collaboration tools, especially for the software development collaboration, including GitHub, GitLab, on many things. And if I'm having some time permits at the later advanced topic after this, not advanced in the sense of for DevOps, but also some materials that I'm going to bring you, including relevance of the GitHub and GitLab and Azure DevOps, and why I'm trying to bring you to use Azure DevOps for now. I know that maybe some of you don't know or some of you already know. Please bear with me. It's a little bit opinionated in a sense that yes, I'm using Azure DevOps, but I guarantee you that I'm not going to use Azure DevOps as the main specific concept that I'm going to explain or going to elaborate. Okay, this is introduction to DevOps, and this is mini DevOps course. Yes. Okay. The goal of this mini course is knowing a world without DevOps, because again, I'm not going to talk about any kinds of DevOps first, because you should know that in order to give you some elaboration and explanation, especially and why DevOps is important, then we need to realize, and of course, not just you, also me as well, that there is a world without DevOps, especially for here in my own country, in Indonesia, unfortunately. But I'm trying to give DevOps as educational awareness. This is, yeah, we still struggling with it. And then knowing that you know that there are world without DevOps, and having a gentle introduction and understanding of DevOps itself, then having that foundation already set up correctly, then I will give you the basic elements of DevOps implementation using Azure DevOps as a sample. I know that I should put as a sample for this one, but if the time permits, I will also try to give you some samples using we already know like GitHub, and there was can be many things like CI/CDs, but that is not what I'm trying to explain, especially in this mini course. This course is not about discussing any infra-related deployment. I'm not going to discuss what is Kubernetes, serverless, or many things, including cloud usage. What I'm trying to say is when people say about DevOps, they usually think, okay, I'm going to do or deploy many things on cloud. I'm going to do many works on cloud, doing many things like maybe migrating from on-premise to cloud. No, I'm not going to give you some samples about that. You already see that many articles, many videos on even on YouTube already done that. So I'm not going to discuss that. I'm not going to discuss any technology or tooling specific. You can use other tooling. Again, I'm using Azure DevOps as a quick sample. And this is not for infra and software development specific. What I'm trying to say is infra related for software development, such as if you are going to deploy the serverless or app service, if you are using Azure, or maybe you are going to use AWS, like there is a EC2 Elastic Compute on AWS, and many things like, of course, the freedom of choice is just. But again, I am not going to discuss specific on that one. And yeah, you can use any platform or runtime. But since I'm more fluent in .NET and also other previous brands such as PHP or Java, um, I will try to give sample of other than .NET if my time is still available. Okay. So about me, this is me Aryawan, and I already have a video to explain the detail of about me last year, and I'm a Microsoft MVP. Thanks, I'm still a Microsoft MVP. You watch it yourself on that video. Okay, so this is the starting course. This is why mm, I'm giving this a title of chapter 0. So what is this and those days without DevOps? Again, to give you a reason uh, for DevOps. Even many people think, okay, I already have DevOps in place. That is that kind of thinking may not be correct, because DevOps is not just, you have a CI/CD and so many things. It's the whole concept. What I'm trying to bring you is the whole concept. Go next. Dev and Ops before DevOps. So let me give a clear boundary first. Dev is application development department or software development department or software engineering department, and ops is the operational department, more like a IT operational department. Dev is developing the app. Ops is doing things and activities after you develop, especially after you deploy the apps, including monitoring the health of the apps, maintaining updates, and doing tweaking about the environment when the application is running, including ensuring that if there is a operating system update related to the server that is you have your app being deployed, it should go very smoothly without any kinds of interruption. And also, when I say about checking the health of the app, that means monitoring and also having some kind of implementation to give you reports of what's going on with the app. Like maybe you have errors, exception, many things, including some fault, some report that says, okay, your app is not available due to some not response for quite long. This is usually happen when the app is doing something like, you can take the it can waste the CPU resources or many IO maybe, or many things like doing something that keeps blocking the whole execution of the server itself. But again, that is not the scope of this time right now. Okay, I'm just trying to give you the boundaries. App development in this sample, you see, there is no version control, and this is actually happened to me. If I got freelance job for one person that do the development of the app, there is no version control. Okay, and if there is a version control, usually it's just okay. You compress the whole binaries and the runtime and also the apps dependencies into one zip and then put it on somewhere else like server or distribute as part of the client machine, especially if you are developing desktop app. And also, as the consequences of that, there is no way to track the historical changes. And there is also some kind of a unfortunate situation here. You have a silo model of the development department and operational department. Like we have read, for example, application development will always at the mercy of the operational department, having one-way communication and always asking for permission to deploy app without any definitive schedule. This is where I'm trying to, you know, put an emphasis without any definitive schedule. And oftentimes when they were trying to deploy, there is no rollback mechanism. And then after that, if something else happened, then the dev and ops always cock in a blaming game. Like, no, you are doing this. This is your fault. No, it's not my fault. It works, especially if the dev says, okay, it works on my machine. That kind of mentality, that kind of reason, I'm not going to say it is correct, but that kind of saying that it works on my machine, meaning that the mentality doesn't really say what's going on. Okay, especially if your development machine is, for example, if I use Windows, using Windows client, but you deploy on Windows Server. I know, okay, you can use .NET Framework or many things like doesn't affect the settings of the Windows, but many things could happen. You bring your deployed app, you bring the dependencies that will affect some part of Windows, especially if there is something like needs to be considered, such as maybe there is a security vulnerability on some of the version of .NET, for example, that needs to be updated or patched, for example, because most of the development they don't realize that that kind of situation needs to be addressed, needs to be updated, and they have to be aware of that. Okay, this is why developer, especially those in the software development department or application development department, never tries to understand the whole complication of any environments before running an app. Okay, and that brings the sad fact that there is no clear distinction of responsibility because of the silo mental model, and this will hurt both departments because those two departments should collaborate. Okay, and based on the last fact from the previous slide, it's more like people problem and communication problem. For example, do all of the both department understand DevOps, or even they say if they understand, is the understanding is correct or not? I I doubt. I don't think so. The second one is the only way to break silo departments are encouraging the communication and collaboration. Communication come first, then collaboration. Why? Because communication should always be encouraged first, should always be built first, then we can collaborate. And communication, I mean two-way, not just one way. Next point, can it collaborated daily? Should it be done as part of the collaboration? This kind of collaboration, especially having a regular activities like periodical, like either daily or twice a week or 3 times a week, should also be seen as habit, because having a habit also means this habit should be ingrained as the DNA part of each team members of those two departments, I should add here. But my point is more like emphasizing on team members, because it is no use if Department A has the willingness to collaborate, but Department B doesn't have the willingness to collaborate, right? It is also not just the department problem, but also the each team member has to, you know, collaborate, being part of the habit, and should be always the part of interaction of both departments. This is why collaboration of dev department and ops department should be formalized as culture. So I put a strong emphasis on culture as well on this last point. Now we are going to go to chapter 1, understanding ideas of DevOps. But before we are going to chapter 1, there is also one scenario that I would like to give you a sample. So quite often, like if there is a operational department, like they only concern about the OS. They don't care about the apps. But if you are part of the operational department, application should also be monitored, right? And that's also part of the daily operational activities. Either you have a server or you have clouds, doesn't matter. But what I'm trying to say is those kind of environment as part of the infrastructure can have your apps right deployed on the server or on the virtual machines on the cloud, or as a serverless app, or an app that is part of even just the modernized version of the application development, such as containers and even Kubernetes. Again, I'm not going to say that those are the best one. Depends on what your situation is. And let me know if you have a more request to, are you really, 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 really justified to have a containers or not? Okay, it's totally a different problem. But then, if you are start thinking about what kind of the deployment that you are going to have, it's also have a it will be a good reason to have a DevOps, because that kind of thinking should not just the responsibility of the dev, but also the responsibility of the ops. Why? Especially if you are dealing with the cloud environment, for example, either you have Azure or AWS. The way you deploy your apps, if you are deployed on the virtual machine, then of course the cost will be higher than just deploying as a container, for example. But then if you are deploying as a container, any kinds of the deployment will be a little bit, uh, I'm not saying difficult, but of course it is different, because the way you deploy the container, you need to push, again, you need to push your image. Before you are going to push, you need to have a good image management. And in the container application development, it is usually using registry. I suggest you need to know about that kind of container registry. Not just the development, but also the operational department should be aware about that. Okay, and this concludes the chapter 0. Not just having the fact that you can always argue, okay, I already have a DevOps in place. No, 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 no. And this is actually a problem. And of course, this kind of problem may cause me missing opportunities, honestly. But I mean, in a good way for me. I don't know about the other, but why I'm telling this is a good way for me. I've already done some DevOps training, either using Azure DevOps or even the old version of Azure DevOps, like Team Foundation Server, during my previous employment. The problem is this: they say they have a good DevOps already in place, but the habit, the communication, collaboration is not there. are not there or were not there, were unavailable. There's something that to me is a surprise. I have done some training, and then the company that hired me as the trainer then blame me that says, okay, your training is not working. After I had some communication back and forth more than 3 times of email and call, I realized that they don't have this kind of a setup or culture or many things. Before you are going to use this DevOps, you already have some rules in place. You already have some collaboration in place, right? This is why, again, that kind of model of habit usually, you know, formalized as a culture. So DevOps actually is not just something that, okay, you are talking about the concept, you are talking about the process, you are talking about the tooling maybe. No, DevOps is a culture. It's a culture first instead of technology first or tooling first. I can have a I'm willing to have a you know healthy debates about that, because I have seen many companies that are willing, okay, give me trainings to Azure DevOps, give me trainings to having a GitHub or whatever tools you have, such as GitLab. I don't have enough experience of using GitLab, but all of those tools should have something that is established first. The culture, that is how are you going to ensure the collaboration between the dev and the ops department are aligned. There's no silo, there's no obstacles in communicating collaboration. There should be some kind of way to do this, and it is impossible only if you are trying to ignore this kind of a reason or this kind of a problem in the first place. So you need to have some formalized culture. Okay, so now you already have it, and I know that, yeah, I've already done some trainings before. Some companies are willing to accept my proposal, like, okay, do you have already DevOps in place? Do you have already understanding of DevOps? Not just for the dev, but also for the ops as well. And I usually ask, if you want me to train using, let's say, any kinds of tools like Azure DevOps or GitHub, are you willing to not just invite your software development team, but also invite some people from the ops department? Because I don't want to, get some blames going. Oh, you're not working. No, no, it's your fault. You're the trainer. No. This is why I have rejected all of the you know, training requests that if I ask them before, you already developed base. If you don't have that, I could not train you. I could not give you training because I already I've been have some bad experience that those companies blame me. So, but unfortunately, again, not all of the companies, especially as far as I know in Indonesia, even bigger companies like um, I don't want to mention names, of course, but if you follow many kinds of big companies in Indonesia, especially uh, manufacturing, especially banking, and not just manufacturing, but also manufacturing that you have a product that is very have a very large user base, like foods, drinks, and so on. Almost all of those companies, they don't have a good DevOps in place. So no matter what kind of tools you use, no matter what kind of process you use, in the end, all of those fundamentals, all the foundations are not established, and you will have a recipe for disaster instead of having a successful implementation of DevOps. So that ends this chapter 0. I know that I should not bring you some bad pictures or bad scenarios, but that even if you have a source control in place, even if you have a CI/CD, even if you have a operation department, if you still have that kind of a silo mentality, or even okay, you have already a software development department and you do all of the deployment on that kind of department. You don't have any specific ops department. That's fine. But what I'm trying to say is, DevOps is not just develop department. There should be some kind of a department that handles the responsibility of monitoring and the operational. So you and your team in the software development department only focus on you know ensuring that the apps that is being developed and going to be deployed is not just stable but also robust, and also should be strong in terms of the paying attention to any kinds of security vulnerability and many things. And they should also give constructive feedback on each other. Communicate like, okay, I'm going to use .NET. I'm going to use .NET 4.8, or I'm going to use an old version of .NET. Can you ensure that it is compatible with your server, for example, if you are having servers in on-premise, or does the deployment to cloud such as Azure or AWS support it, for example, especially if you are going to use VM such as the AWS EC2 or Azure VM. That makes a whole thing, you know, should be available for having a discussion, right? Because the operation need to know what kind of application that you are going to deploy, and operation department also needs to know, does your application will impact the compatibility or the runtime or stability of the server itself. And you as the developers need to know what kind of the servers that you have, so I could deploy this app successfully and ensure that at least it can run. Whether it can run as a good app or something like that, it depends. But there is also the next part of the DevOps and the upcoming materials. Okay, I conclude this, and thank you for having me. I will see you on the next discussion of chapter 1, understanding the basic ideas and of course the other ideas of DevOps and the reasons why you should have a not just having a DevOps but also having a good, correct DevOps in place. Okay, as usual, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy my video, and also please watch my other videos, especially about the learning videos, the I think it's not podcast, the course of belajar.net. I will continue belajar.net after this as well, and there will be one or two videos to conclude the belajar.net of .net 9, and then I'm going to try to move to .net 11 after the preview 4 is released. So I'm not going to use preview 2. Yeah, I know that preview 2 has been released. Preview 3 will be released soon, as I think next month, if I'm not mistaken. But I will wait because some things need to be ironed first. The second thing is there is no support, updated support yet. If you are going to develop on top of Visual Studio 2023 and also on top of Visual Studio Code. This is why I try to wait for a while and just let me try to finish the Belajar.net. It's been more than 2 months without any updates because yeah, not just job but also I've been trying to update the Visual Studio updates, and I have a special interview edition with Mats Christensen, the one that he's the principal program manager of Visual Studio team, and also I have done some other videos on Visual Studio channel, Microsoft official Visual Studio channel on YouTube. You'll see that I gave the samples of modernizing your app, especially using WinForms, for example. Okay, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you on next chapter. I'm going to talk episode chapter.